Namo Bhagavate Ramakrishna. Salutations to Bhagavan Ramakrishna. We got today Samsara. Yesterday we discussed the nature of karma. Samsara is the laws of karma, etc., on a massive scale. It is karma writ large. And as we go on, I'll try to place before you some of the important aspects of this mighty doctrine. It's an amazing thing that we could bring out, even conceptualize this concept that will explain everything in our lives. Okay. As I mentioned yesterday, we are a product of our own thoughts, words, and deeds. Everything that we have thought and worked and spoken, studied, and everything, we are its product. We have made ourselves. And this journey hasn't been very easy for anybody. If you see, there's one thing that life throws at you, and that is suffering. So this suffering has been, why is this nature of the world to be so full of pain and misery and suffering? See, all of us, including humans and all species that are existing in this universe, have more or less have co-evolved. It is sometimes through competition, but mainly through cooperation. We have cooperated with everything in this universe. And it has been a very, very long story. It has taken the human species millions of years. And this is what we need to kind of understand, that it has not been a very easy journey. We have evolved together. All species have survived together, at least the ones who are suffering, who are existing now. No one in this universe is greater or smaller. We all have a place in this universe. We all have a place in this mighty scheme of life. So this travails, this long, you can say, journey of each and every species to have come up to this place has been remarkable. 95% or 96% of all the species that ever lived have all become extinct. We are the great survivors. And out of that remaining 5 or 6%, we have proliferated over and over and over and over again. This has been the story, this has been a long story of humanity. We generally tend to think of my life. Your life has to be dependent on the totality of all lives. You just cannot have my life and my body. It's just not possible. Your life and your body will not survive without the samashti or the comprehensive life that is there in this universe. So this samsara Yeah, there are so many movies and so many books and so many things written about this samsara, this topic of samsara. One thing is there, it's very difficult for us to even understand. Most people think that they know, they read a little books on Vedanta, and then they say, yeah, we know a little Vedanta. We have heard Swami Satyamayananda and Swami so-and-so giving the Vedanta talks and this and that. Oh, yeah, so we know. No, it takes years. He's saying, Swami Vivekananda says, it takes months to explain one single concept and years to understand it. The first stumbling block in trying to understand Vedanta, Indian philosophy, is the innumerable contradictions that are there. The reality is spoken of sometimes in contradictory terms. Take, for instance, Asino Duram Brajati. Like, it is sitting here, but goes everywhere. Shayano Yati Sarvata. It is lying down or sleeping, but it is a traveler. Or Anoraniyan Mahato. It is smaller than the smallest and the greater than the greatest. What is this? Can't you describe it? If I want to describe, yeah, this is a pen. I'm going to describe a pen. So I describe a pen. Why can't Vedanta describe it things like this? Straight. No, Vedanta will never describe it. Because they're saying you are not seeing the whole pen. And they will tell you that the whole conceptualization, the manufacturing process and this and that, and up till here. And then they will show that there is no such thing as what you call a pen. So what Vedanta is trying to tell you in its language, which is sometimes very inelegant to modern philosophers, they're trying to tell you that the oneness of this universe, smaller than the smallest, greater than the greatest. Where is that? It's in the heart of every being. Here it is. So it's not only they are giving you some airy explanations, but they're telling you where to look for that. They are speaking about the oneness of everything. If we can understand this, then we can understand that all our dichotomies, human life and human mind is a very strange phenomena. We sometimes are angels and sometimes are devils. Okay. How do you bridge both these things together? We are a personality, yet it's made up of sub-personalities. There's no such thing as a personality. I may be a kind of a saint here, but when I go on the road and I might have a kind of a road rage. They'll say, what happened to that saint? Kind of road rage. Now we are seeing a kind of contradiction. Sometimes you see life is contradictory. Everything is so nice and everything is happy. Yeah, but you scratch that happiness and you'll find everything is so miserable and sad. There's joy and sorrow and bliss, and you can say misery and all these things. Contradictions everywhere. So Vedanta encapsulates the whole thing and says there is no contradiction. It is one thing looked at from two different standpoints. So it's not only our lives that are kind of dual, but all life in this universe. And this whole life, if you can take it, it's like a mighty tree of life. You've seen those pictures of those evolution, no? The bacteria that has come out from this side and archaea, is come out from this side, and all these various species are branching and branching and branching and branching. Oh yeah, you look at the history of our species for a few million years. Don't bother over billion years. You'll see how we have branched off from a common ancestor, and then from that common ancestor has got some other common ancestor, and the other common ancestor has got some other common ancestor. What's happening? This is the tree of life. Evolution, that's the tree of life. And we can now be very certain that all life has sprung from one source, because the tree and the plants and the birds and the animals contain the same DNA that I contain. Sometimes there are even more chromosomes than me. If life was not springing from one source, we would have had different, you can say, DNAs. But fortunately, thank God, it's all that's sprung from one source. It's like a tree that is springing from one seed. So this is the whole universe, the whole world is but the tree of life. What is samsara? Samsara, the tree, the tree. Oh, really? Yeah, but popularly samsara is called as, yeah, we are tied down in chains in samsara. We are scorched by samsara. We are burned by samsara. Sometimes we are scorched, burnt, and tied and dunked into samsara. We are in the net of samsara. Oh, it's terrible. This is popularly samsara. And then a little more popular explanation is, oh my God, life itself is samsara. Marriage, education, job, this, that, all these, this love and hatred, all this is samsara. You say, oh my God, this guy is sunk into samsara. And what is that? This I and me and my and you and yours, this is samsara. But how do we kind of come out of this whole thing, whole mess? Yeah, we can come out of this mess. So samsara in its technical definition is that which flows, that which spreads, that which increases. Samsarati. It's made out of two words. Samyak rupena samsarati. So that is what it spreads. It's called Bhavasagar, whatever you like to call it. So this is the wheel of life. Now we know that this word itself can be compared to a tree. Samsara itself can be compared to a tree because it has a host of meanings attached to it. In fact, Hinduism itself is sometimes compared to a tree. There is no one Hinduism. Hinduism made up of thousands and thousands of traditions and philosophies and doctrines and sects and everything. This whole thing taken together is Hinduism. We think like Hinduism is just one thing. Oh no, it has defied definition. It is defied explanation. It is defied even a proper study of this. It's vast. So it's compared to a tree. And like the word samsara and like the word life in this universe, it's a huge tree branching on and on and on and on. It's a tremendous place. This is a place where we reside. You must understand that in this tree of life, we all exist. We are like, in Hinduism, we have our little secrets, not those dirty little secrets. We have little secrets. People think that life is kind of straightforward. I do one thing and I get this thing. I do another thing, I get another thing. Oh, never. Right now, there are so many forces, external and internal, that are working on you. You won't even believe. Sushmita was just saying that you are going to have a storm. See how it has affected you. It's affected your life. You can say cosmic rays that they're streaming out from the universe, coming down, they also affect you. You don't even know it. They're passing and repassing our bodies. There are hundreds of things, millions and millions of things right now passing through you. What's happening? Can't we all? So there are so many psychological factors. There are so many physical factors around you that are affecting you. Don't even know it. This whole thing taken together is samsara. Yes. Secondly, we don't live just an ordinary, simple life. We put on a kind of a mask. Generally, in the old days, personality meant persona, a mask. The old tragic comedies in the Greek theaters, they used to put on mask, and that was how that personality, that character was defined by the mask. And we put on a kind of a mask and play our roles. But we know what we are. We are not only living a double life, we are sometimes living a treble or quadruple lives. Oh yes, all of us are leading more than one life, two lives. That's why it's very difficult to understand people, their motives, their urges, what drives them, everything. People appear irrational at times. We just cannot understand a person in its totality. Okay. So the sages said it covers, the word samsara covers the entirety. The experiencer, the one who experiences, the objects of experience, and the relationship between the objects of experience and the experiencer. So the act of experience, the experiencer, and the objects of experience. So samsara covers all this. The jiva, the experiencer, is called a samsarin, one who experienced the samsara. I think this is more or less clear. So we are samsarins. We are constantly flowing, moving, expanding. We want more and more and more. We just cannot be satisfied with one small thing. One thought arises in my mind. It leads to another thought, a series of thoughts. And that gives rise to another series of thoughts, another series of thoughts. Swami Vivekananda says there is something called Vyapti. Vyapti is one wave in the mind gives rise to a series of waves of memories. I think about a pen, and the pen will give rise to a series of other related memories. This is, in a way, samsara. You can't stay put. You cannot close your mind. You cannot but think. And the moment you think, you are in samsara. And that samsara drags you further and further and further away from you. So this samsarin and is in samsara, one who experiences. Okay. So this world and this mind also is like a wheel within a wheel. Like these old Indian stories, my God, wonderful. You start with a story, like in the Mahabharata and Ramayana and all the Purana. You start with the story and you suddenly pop into another story. And that second story is going into the third story and fourth story. It will lead you round and round and round. My God, how did I get caught up in this kind of? And that is the genius of the Indian mind. Kind of amazing. Can you imagine For thousands, not thousands, millions of years, we have sat around fires and we have told our stories. The stories of our fathers and our grandfathers, of heroes, of hunts and battles, of losses and gains. It was around these fires that we began culture and civilization. Oh yes, religion began around the fireplaces. Religion began with the stories around the fireplaces. We learned languages, we learned to communicate, we learned to bond around the fireplace. We learned to protect each other, because if I'm looking at the fire there and facing the fire, I don't know what's behind me, but there is someone else sitting on the other side of the fire who can watch my back. We learned how to become tribal, a family, a unit around these fireplaces. And around these fireplaces, what did we do? We told those great stories. These became the great oral tradition, and this oral tradition found all over the world in every culture. Religion began with the stories. Today we have these fire sacrifice, homas. What is that? When we are, you can say, fueling the fire, throw the pieces of wood more in the fire. That became the havish, the oblation. It was around these fires that rituals grew, religion grew, mythologies grew. All mythologies are but the old stories. The Vedas themselves, before they could be written, were all old, long tradition, oral traditions. So we have these old stories. And there was this massive pool of stories told and retold over generations and generations. Out of this massive pool of stories, we picked out some of them and made them what we are, these grand narratives of today. There are still many stories yet to be heard. Our lives itself is a big story. Each and every one of us, our lives can be compared to a story. You are writing your own story. There are some stories that are being scripted. There are some stories that are told. Some stories are untold. Some stories are good, and there are some bad, and there are some ugly. There are some disastrous stories. There are some stories within stories. Each life is a story. And apart from all this philosophy and metaphysics and logic and all, we are actually more interested in stories. You see, all our novels and all our cinema, all our stories. They are stories. We are always attracted to stories. This is a story of life. Now, to understand our own individual story, which we have been scripting, which we have been moving, flowing, spreading outwards. My story is within a certain cultural matrix. Culture is language, philosophy, religion, and all the various other things that make up culture. So my story is within a cultural matrix. And we have many types of cultures, many types of societies. So this cultural matrix is within the larger cultural matrix. A civilizational, a human civilizational matrix. And this civilizational matrix, which my story is in the larger story of humanity, and which is in the larger story of all life. So it is like concentric circles. When you throw a pebble in a smooth lake, very smooth lake, calm. What happens is, you will see the pebble throws up a concentric ripple. And this ripple spreads and spreads and spreads. It's not only one ripple, a series of ripples. These series of ripples are our stories. And since we are not alone in this pool, there are other stones being thrown, pebbles being thrown in that lake. So there are other ripples intersecting with us. Intersecting, dissecting, trisecting, bisecting, all these things. This is the story of this great samsara. It's like, again, like I said, a story within a story within a story. It's like that wheel within a wheel within a wheel, like these old Puranic stories of ours. So your story is within another larger story. And that larger story is within a still a larger story, and a still larger story, and a still larger, and there we go. People think, oh, I'm so lonely. There's nobody to look after me. There's nobody loves me. I'm so alone. They have made themselves so. They have not read the stories of life. Not only their life, but they haven't learned the stories around them. Each story embodies other stories. A family, the members of a family embody, one member embodies the stories of the other members of the family. I cannot understand why people think they are alone and lonely and all these things. This is another psychological crisis in today's modern society. Alone, I'm alone. Nobody loves me. And there are so many stories of love around you. Yeah, but still you think nobody loves me. Why don't you go and try to love others? That's the best way. Instead of waiting for people to love you, go out and love others. Yeah. And then people don't want any trouble, you know. Loving means giving trouble. Yeah. They want love without the sacrifice element. Every love has to have a sacrifice behind it. Otherwise, it's no love at all. No, nobody wants to sacrifice. Everybody wants free love. Free love. There's nothing free in this universe. So there we are. Now, so the materials of these stories, where do we get the materials of the stories? So one is, I told you, this a matrix within a matrix within a matrix within a matrix. It's like a story within a story within a story within a story. That is kind of good enough. Okay, now this is understood. But there is another dimension to this. All our memories, which we have also been trying to hide from others, are also part of this story. And there's a still deeper aspect of that story. It's called memory of karma. Yesterday, we were talking, Purvi was asking me about this vasanas. These are the old memories that we have. So we have karmic memory. We have that memories. You know, we have written our own stories in our own genes. Because in our genes, we find the story of our own evolution. A billion-year story written in our own genes. Oh yeah, really? Of course. And genes and epigenes. Whatever we eaten also and drunk and did all these things, they are in our epigenes. They express or not express certain genes. So our history, our genetic history is written in our genes. Our mental history is written in our karmic memory. That's a huge, 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 huge branching tree. And then, of course, there's an external world out here that we know is another kind of a branching of. So we are in this massive internal and external tree of samsara. Okay. I will say, what is exactly missing here? So what is this? People think that their stories are not relevant. No, every story is relevant. Every story has a continuity. It is part of the larger narrative. We must understand this, that as we script our stories, we must be careful of what we script, what we write. Some people are bad writers. Some people end up with bad stories. Yeah, and nature and evolution just pushes it away. It keeps the nice stories. So in this whole tree of life, a tree of samsara, we are all working out our internal and external karmas. We are working out our life. We are trying to spread. We are trying to expand. And this is what is called, another word called the doctrine of Maya. You see, what happens is people have been trying to understand Maya. It is just impossible. You just cannot understand Maya. Because the very nature of Maya is its indefinability, anirvachaniya, inexpressible. You cannot understand it as simple as that. For such a small thing as Maya cannot be understood, cannot be understood at all. What do? The same thing is with samsara. It can never be understood comprehensively. Why? Because the Maya, when it in its practical aspects, or the impact of Maya on us, is samsara. So samsara is the, you can say, the impact, the practical aspects of our life, the tangible things that we experience. Maya is a theoretical side. So here we are. So in a way, we are, as I had mentioned before, anoraniyan mahato, the smaller than the smallest and the greater than the greatest. All aspects of my personality and sub-personalities, everything are strung together, as it were. And it has to have a comprehensive explanation. Why is this so? This is the nature of samsara. There is something kind of missing here. We always see that this world can never be perfect. You get $1 million and then you want another $1 million. You get a second $1 million and you want a third $1 million. It's like that old wild goose chase. In India, we used to use the kasturi, that the musk. The musk grows into a deer's glands and it exudes that aroma, that smell, and the deer becomes kind of maddened. It runs about all over the place. And running all over the place, it kills itself. Or it's also called the mriga marichika, like the deer running for water in a mirage. There's something there that we are trying to attain some perfection, some happiness, but everything is kind of incomplete. Some element of the story is always incomplete. The thing is not falling into place. The last jigsaw is still being incomplete. What is it? What is that? You do anything, you'll never be satisfied. You try for the best, but yet you'll conceive that I still have a long way to go for the final, you can say, culmination, the perfection. Perfection, yet the idea of perfection is deeply implanted in us. We know it's foolish to run after this. We should have kept quiet, but we got our fingers burnt. We are stupid enough to say or do something that made us get into trouble. I should have kept quiet. Our lives are incomplete. Kurt Gödel was a very famous, you can say, mathematician. He was there somewhere in Princeton. He fled Nazi Germany. Not Germany, he was an Austrian. He gave the theory of incompleteness. Incomplete. Everything is still incomplete. Everything that you think is complete is incomplete. And it's a very famous theorem, Gödel's incompleteness theorem. We also find Werner Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Everything that you do, you think it's certain, nothing is certain. Everything it smacks of uncertainty. It has to be. This is the nature of samsara. It reminds me of that old, you can say, story of Leo Tolstoy, if you remember, that Satan comes and gives 7 jars of gold to one person, a miser. He's saying all these jars, 6 jars are full. The 7th has to be filled. Just little is there. You so fill it up. So it's yours for the keeping. And this person works and works and works. And every time he gets a gold coin, he puts it in that 7th incomplete jar. And it seems that the jar is never full. The more he fills it, it's remaining the same. So our lives also are like that. It's like in India, we have this oxen, the bullocks, they are tied between the nose, nostrils, and that we're pulled like that. We are never going to find any completeness in life. You will never find a complete story. Everything will be fragmented. So, what's the solution? And this is where Hinduism comes in, Vedanta comes in. Saying, yes, what is true? This samsara is like a mighty tree. Mighty. Narupamasya tato palabhyate. Its form can never be understood. Nanto chardina jasam pratishta. Its beginning, its end, and its support can never be understood. This is found in the Bhagavad Gita. That same concept has been picked up by the Bhagavad Gita from the Katha Upanishad. Urdhvamula masatshatam esha asvatasana. This mighty tree of life, this mighty tree of samsara, has its roots above and its branches below. Where you say, just a moment, these guys didn't know that trees have their roots down and the branches up. These guys are saying the tree of samsara has its roots above and its branches below. And it's branching and rebranching and branching and branching over and over and over again. Where is the roots and where is it? These guys have got it all wrong. Actually, we have got it all wrong. When we are seeing this world, we are seeing this upside down. What do you mean upside down? Yes, actually we are seeing the whole scene upside down. You want to know where exactly you can see a tree with its roots up and its branches below? Go to the edge of a lake or a pool where a tree is reflected. You got it? So when we are seeing this tree of samsara with its roots above and its branches below, we are seeing this world, we are writing our stories and our lives as a kind of a opposite, a reaction, a reflection. So what is the right side up? The right side up Now let us come down to what is really important. It is God. The moment you put in God or reality in it, then we don't see this world upside down, we see it right side up. Now we see the whole thing complete. Now we see the whole thing perfect. You know, in Vedanta, it's something that's called vidya, knowledge, and avidya, non-knowledge. What is avidya? It is the opposite of knowledge. Why is it called avidya? Or it's also called jnana and ajnana. Why is it called? It's because we are not seeing that knowledge correctly. We are seeing it oppositely. So this is the contradiction in our lives. This is the contradiction in our personalities, in the world, in everything. The moment you see it as jnana or vidya, everything becomes. How do you bring in the Lord? Bring in the Lord in your thoughts, your words and deeds. And then you see the whole thing clear. The Lord himself is a samsari. The Atman, which is there inside the reality, is called a samsari, no a samsari. It is beyond samsara. So samsara we understood, we have been explaining all this. And God or reality or truth or existence or my own Atman is a samsara. We have not put this element into the broader picture of this life. The moment we do that, your story becomes complete. Everything makes sense. Contradictions are over. From the smaller to the smallest, to the greater than the greatest. Anoraniyan mahato mahiyan. Anu is atom. Smaller than an atom. Mahato mahiyan. Greater than the greatest of galaxies. Greater than the greatest. This reality, the Vedas say, is in the hearts of all beings. Atmasya janto nihito guhaya. It is in the heart of all beings. And that's why in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Tesham eva anukampartha aham ajnana. Out of compassion for them, I destroy the darkness born of delusion by bringing in the light lamp of knowledge. This is what God does for us. And if we can learn to surrender, then we will understand our real nature as beyond samsara. It is a samsara. Okay. So this is what Tesham aham samudharta mrityu samsara saga. So this samsara, Sri Krishna says, is the samsara of death. Mrityu samsara saga is constantly, everything is constantly living and dying. Every cell in your body is constantly dying off. It's giving birth to newer cells, at the same time it's dying off. So in this sea of death called samsara, he says, I, Tesham, for them who are sunk in this samsara, I will lift them out of this samsara. This is knowledge. This is liberation. Liberation from samsara. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.